Hello, everyone. Thanks for checking out this special episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny, and I am here with.
Tomas Härenstam.
And today we're going to talk about Alien Building Better Worlds. Such a very interesting book. It's a source book, part of the Alien role playing game from Free League Publishing. First things first, how did the idea for this book come about exactly? What is this book exactly?
Yeah, this is the second campaign book for the Alien RPG. This game has like two game modes, the cinematic mode and then the campaign mode. And the cinematic mode are kind of the one-shot scenarios where you play a group of people who are not necessarily all gonna survive, but they're more of a cinematic one-shot experience. But then the other mode is the campaign mode, where you can actually play for longer campaigns with the same characters to really kind of go deep into the Alien universe. And the first book in that series was the Colonial Marines Operations Manual. That's all about playing as Colonial Marines, as seen in the second film. But then this book instead focuses on colonists and explorers in the alien universe. In the core game, we kind of established three separate campaign types or frameworks. You have the Colonial Marines, you have the space truckers, as seen like in the first film, and then you have the colonists and explorers, which is like the third type of campaign you can play really. And this book really gives you all of the tools to do that. It has everything from background of colonization of the known universe in the alien world. It has rules for new types of characters. It's got a full campaign to play and kind of a system for generating colonies and planets to discover also procedurally when playing a campaign.
And I'm really glad this book exists. I think when I talk to other game masters about the Alien role playing game, and we talk about, we one thing we love best is the rule system for it is excellent. It fits so well with the game. But sometimes they'll ask me like, okay, is there anything more beyond? Because cinematically, the scenarios for that, those are fun to do. But when it comes to like long-term campaigns, like, okay, is there more beyond, uh, uh, what the movies show, And when I see this book, it actually excites me because there's so much more going on that you're building, so much world building or universe building in this case. So let's talk about the source book a little more closely, maybe a little bit chapter by chapter, if that's all right.
Sure.
Because it's interesting that this book it's not just like one thing. It's not just equipment. It's not just a bestiary. It's all of that and more. So yeah, let's talk about the history of colonization. I thought that was a very interesting chapter. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's kind of giving you the details of how it's just a lot of background detail to really dig deep into the alien universe. And that chapter is written by Drew Gaska, who is our main setting consultant and did a lot of the setting work. And he's very intimately familiar with the alien universe and really digs deep into the 40 plus years of alien films, comics, books, games that have been coming out and really kind of uh, from that pulled out all of that setting that has been generated throughout the decades and put that into a coherent story and chronology about how humanity has reached for the stars in the alien universe and put that together in a timeline and also kind of thematically painting what's been going on in different parts of the known space and put that together. So that's it's great resource for creating a campaign, but also a lot of fun if you're just a fan of the Alien franchise, just to kind of dig into that because it's all backed up by sources, by lore that has been established beforehand. So it's really connecting a lot of dots.
And in the organization chapter with Alien, the movies, I always felt that the focus is so much on the monster that the real bad guy behind a lot of these movies is usually the military slash corporations that are trying to take
Mhm.
advantage and use this alien creature as a weapon. And so I'm really glad this exists. It gives you kind of different variety of different corporations you're working with or fighting against. Um,
Yeah.
could you share a little bit about what's in chapter three, organization?
Yeah, I mean that chapter kind of goes into. I have the book here as well. So it's a hefty book, and this chapter is fairly sizable. Goes into all kinds of organizations. There's the, like you mentioned, there are the governmental organizations like the United Americas, as it's called, the UPP, which is a kind of a space Soviet Russia type thing, and the Three World Empire. I mean, all of these kind of go back to a time before the end of the Cold War. So it's kind of a different. It's not our future really. It's more of an alternate future, or things developed in a different direction. But they're all really interesting and well painted out, I think. And also other organizations that you can encounter in the world of Alien. So it's also kind of ties into the history chapter that kind of gives you lots of information and tools to build a campaign with.
Now, chapter 4, making frontier colonists. Players, they love their options.
Yeah.
What does this chapter offer exactly?
Yeah, it offers some more character generation options. You have two more archetypes, the wildcatter and the entertainer, who are both kind of more civilian type characters who you might encounter on distant worlds, being, colonies and on distant planets or moons. New talents that you can any character can have, more kind of personal options, more things to do, and just a general discussion about what types of characters would you be playing in a colonist or explorer campaign, also using the archetypes in the core game. So really, what it does, it gives you what you need to create player characters for a campaign of this type.
Mm. And then after that, you have the chapter Gears and Ships.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about this chapter, even though it's kind of self-explanatory?
Yeah, it is, but there's a lot of cool stuff. I mean, of course, your explorers need your gear, so there's both like new weapons, new land vehicles for kind of exploring distant worlds, new spacecraft, and yeah, all kinds of vehicles. All most of them illustrated, of course, also with game stats. It has Yes, it really, and it has the spaceship that is suggested that you use as a base for your exploration, and it all detailed with stats for use with the space combat system in the core game, and yeah, basically everything you need to colonize a new world
Mm.
in terms of equipment you'll find in that chapter.
If I may ask, do you have any? Is there a favorite weapon, favorite armor, or ship?
I don't know. That's a good question. There's looking now. It's just interesting. Just nice to flip through the pages of the book. Uh, I mean, there are these really cool kind of ground vehicles. There's that kind of Ox series. That it's a UPP, I think, big brutish six-wheeled thing. Kind of looks like the APC in Aliens, only bigger, and I think that one is really cool. So that's one. If I have to pick one, it would be that one.
Campaigns on the frontier.
Yeah, I mean, it goes into some detail about what you would actually be doing in a campaign as a colonist or explorer in the Alien RPG, and I think that's kind of needed because, like you said, if you basically seen the films, they're great, but they give you kind of a narrow slice of the world. So there is this need for a broader perspective because in playing a campaign here, you wouldn't necessarily encounter xenomorphs in every session. You might not encounter them at all. You might be doing something completely different because there's a lot more to this universe than just the Xenos. So basically, what this chapter does is to go through that. There's also there's actually two types of campaigns. There is the Explorer campaign, which is, well, obviously when you kind of just explore new worlds, and then the colonization, the colonist campaign, where you're actually more focused on staying on one newly discovered world and establish a colony there. So there's actually two separate kind of branches in this book, and what you'll be doing and playing in them. So it gives you this chapter gives basically the game mother all kinds of background, kind of advice, and just more general some additional rules, and just kind of going through how a campaign would work. What would you be doing? What might be happening? And kind of how can you kind of, on a general level, what can you, how can you create a campaign in a setting like this?
Hmm. And I see that you also have a bunch of adventures and adventure seeds built
Yeah.
in. Um, Anything about these that may be different from previous adventures? Is there have you got? Are we looking going to different directions when it comes to story building?
I don't think it's completely different. I mean, even the core game does cover these three types of campaigns, and it does give, the core book also discusses explorer campaigns to some extent. So it kind of doesn't really change it as much as it just gives lots of more tools and deepens it, and gives you more to do. I'd say, more than changing things that much. And that's kind of what we try to do with these campaign books. It's kind of build on the campaign chapter in the core book and just give you more tools and resources.
So chapter 7, systems and colonies. I love building planets. I love making new planets,
Yeah.
and but it's after a while it gets really challenging. Sometimes I personally get stuck in making like Star Wars. So you know how Star Wars, they kind of make fun of it. Like there's a desert planet, there's an ice
Yeah.
planet, there's a volcano
Yeah.
planet. Um,
Yeah.
when it came to building these worlds, did you look for different sources of inspiration? Where did you go?
Yeah, I mean, I think this one also written by Drew. So he's the one who kind of drew up the main strokes of this chapter, and I know that most of it, a lot of it, is also based on previous publications. So a lot of these planets, moons, and colonies that are described here actually appear somewhere else before. They might have appeared in a book in the 90s or a comic from, at some point. So really, he pulls a lot from a lot of sources and then adds some things of his own. So it's really also a trove of information that pulls together things that have appeared at some point. So that's kind of how what the basis of this chapter, I'd say. So that and it gives you lots of worlds to explore. It has, of course, a number of worlds within kind of what is known as chartered space, like that is on the big star map in the core game, but it also adds a whole new section of space called the far spinward colonies, which is kind of a distant area that was colonized 100 years ago, but then all contact with those colonies was lost. And so that's a whole new, and that I'll get to that later. But the campaign that is included in the book really focuses on those far spinward colonies, and those are also described in this chapter. Yeah.
Hmm. The Wayland Yutani Extrasolar Species Catalog. I love that title. You didn't just call it, you didn't call it Alien Bestiary. You just call it,
Yeah.
you gave it this title, which I love the creativity in this book. I'll talk more about that in a bit. Um, but uh, but yeah. So what can you share without spoiling too much about this bestiary section?
Yeah, it's really what it is, and I think that name really is great as well, and it gives you more versions of the xenomorph. Some of them have appeared in cinematic scenarios previously, some have not, some are completely new, and basically it's exactly that, new versions, because that's one of the cool things about the xenomorph, and the way it's been explored, is that using, it's there are really countless endless varieties, which kind of give, because that's kind of one of the challenges if you would just have the same monster in every scenario, that would get old after a while. But using this, there's in the backstory, the way these creatures have uh, developed, there's like really an infinite variety among them, and this kind of explores that and gives you more nasty monsters to encounter in the darkness of space.
The Lost Worlds chapter, chapter 9. I find it intriguing that it's not originally part of the other chapter, Systems and Colonies. Um, I think that's a really intriguing idea that you're playing with here, where the idea that, yeah, these are what we have a section here that's mapped out. We also have a section here that's not mapped out. It's totally unknown.
Yeah.
Could you share a little bit about more about this chapter?
Right. I mean, this is kind of the because the book, this is basically the second half of the book starts here, and this chapter maps out or gives it the broad strokes of the campaign that is included, a complete campaign that is ready to play. So this book is not just like a source book for creating your own campaigns. It does include a full campaign, even though it's a kind of a sandbox style campaign. So it's not a linear story that you will follow. It gives you it gives the players lots of room to choose and go where they want. But this chapter gives the kind of overview of that, the background of the campaign, the main players, the main NPCs, and just the structure of the campaign, the way it's because really this campaign, and that's not a spoiler, is about rediscovering those lost colonies in the far windward colonies. So the players characters are part of this expedition to reclaim those lost colonies. So basically, what you'll be doing is going there, and then in the order that players want, they can kind of reconnect or rediscover these lost colonies, and that's the campaign. And of course, there is something sinister going on behind the scenes. So basically, they will find clues in wherever they go. They will find more clues about what's actually happening behind the scenes, and that after a while, having explored those lost colonies, that will in the end kind of all kind of point toward a big campaign like finale. And so that's and this chapter gives you kind of the framework for all of that. And it also has a ship that you might use that is the beta, like the headquarters for the player characters. It's a exploration ship. So that and the crew of that ship were the kind of recurring NPCs that the player characters will kind of meet and encounter throughout, continuously through the campaign. Those are also there. So, and this chapter was written, parts of it by Drew, parts of it kind of I drew up some the structure for it, but then also Dave Seamark, who did a lot of the campaign work, is also. So this is really a cooperation between all of us.
So, Expeditions, Chapter 10, is this a collection of one shots for game mothers? Is this a long campaign? What is this chapter exactly?
Yeah, this is kind of the meat of the campaign of the book. So what you have is a number of seven expeditions, they're called, and each expedition is really a short adventure. Or short, I mean, it could be short. It can probably be played each expedition as a one shot. If you kind of play it quickly and kind of push it through, you can probably do it in a single session. I would say maybe more like 2 sessions, 3 sessions, but you can also make them even longer if you like, because each expedition takes place on a separate world, and there's also kind of more additional information about each world and how you can actually colonize them further. So if you want, in any of these seven expeditions can actually be extended into a longer colonization if you want to. So really, you could kind of expand this to a
Mhm.
very long campaign. But if you want to play quickly, I think you could potentially play each one as a one shot, even though that would really mean, playing pretty fast and go through them quickly. But that's what it is. And except for the last one, which is kind of the finale of the whole campaign, all of the others are basically playable in any order. So you're not forced to play them in a specific order. You can kind of let the players decide where they want to go, or you can, as game mother, you can kind of give them certain options. If you don't want to prepare all like 6 expeditions ahead of time, you might not present the players with 6 options. You might give them 2 or 3. Just would you want to go here or there, and then you can be ready for either choice as a game mother. And that I think that's a kind of a philosophy that we try to follow, and generally in many of our games is that it's crucial, we think, to give players agency and choice, because that will make a lot more meaningful and enjoyable as a player if you feel that what you want to do and the choices you make actually kind of matter and make a difference. It's not just following the preset path from A to B, but really it's give players freedom of choice and agency.
Hmm. So, I have to ask something about the way these alien books are designed, and each time I see a new Freely book in general, the design of it is fantastic. I I so as a graphic designer myself, usually when I get content from other writers, artists, and so forth, you can at this point I can tell when I look at a book that usually like they'll get the information first and then the designer has to work around it to make everything fit and maybe cut things out. But these books, especially this Building Better Worlds book, it's like it's designed almost perfectly, if that makes sense. Like it seems like every page has a purpose. There's no if there's the design is wondrous, and whatever information is on there, if the page like captures it perfectly. Um, if I may ask, as an editor, how do you how do you handle the design of these books exactly? Like do you wait for the content to come in and then work with the designer to put it together? How does that all work?
Yeah, it's a. I'm glad you bring that up because it's a really big thing, big part of what we how we work, I think, and it was like that from the start. Well, with all the games, but really, I think Alien we did something pretty specific in that we tried to have had the philosophy that each kind of spread, if not each book, but each like two-page spread of the book should be kind of have it be kind of self-contained almost, that you don't need any information should be on one spread. You shouldn't need to kind of flip pages while actually checking some piece of information. It should all be on a single spread, and that kind of course put some demands on text length and things like that. So it's a bit challenging sometimes to kind of fit it in there, and I don't, we try it, some in some pages might be better than others, but anyway, generally that's kind of the idea, and what we try to do is to get all the information of some things, so a specific subject, onto one spread and present that spread so that you can find everything right in front of you and you don't have to read long passages of text from page to page as you play. That might be perfectly fine if you're just reading the book, but if you're actually playing the game, finding a specific piece of information hidden in a long block of text, passing from page to page, will be quite difficult. So we really try to make the books as kind of user friendly and as possible in play, and that's part of that. Really try to get into presenting the information in that way. And the way we do it, normally the writer will write, but then we have pretty specific kind of templates for how text is written in the first place. Kind of you have to, the writers need to follow this kind of structure, and each block of text can only be that long, because otherwise it won't fit on the page. So there are some strict guidelines or rules really for the writers ahead of time, but even after that, when we get the text, we also do quite a bit of editing on them just to kind of make them work in this structure that is kind of strict in a sense, but that's the whole purpose is to get that everything onto the spread in a way that is easy to kind of grasp quickly when playing the game.
Is there any thought maybe in the future of doing like a alien RPG art book?
It's been discussed, yeah. I mean, we have done some kind of digital art books as part of, I think at some point. But yeah, we might do that, certainly. But yeah, it's also, I mean, we feel that the books, that's kind of another part of what we try to do, is that these books should be, if not art books, they should be kind of immersive, and art and graphic design is really a big part of that as well. So we try to present the art in a way that is kind of really appealing and immersive in these books. So they kind of art books in themselves
Mm.
almost, we think, at least whenever we can. And the way we've done it for the Alien RPG and some others is that we kind of a lot of the time we work with spread by spread, and all the most of the art, except for the kind of the character portraits, but the other art is actually full spread art pieces, and then you have these blocks of text placed on the art piece on the areas that are not so crucial, so you actually cover some of it up. But basically you have the art piece as a backdrop for the text rather than just have boxes with art in them. So the art is kind of behind, is like the whole spread is the artwork, and then you have little boxes of text on top of it. And that also a way to kind of really give the art space to breathe and be as immersive as possible. So that's kind of how we've done it with this one. With the Alien RPG, I think the Blade Runner RPG has kind of the similar philosophy that it's actually the whole page is art with some text placed on it rather than just have art placed in boxes.
So this is coming out in early January 2024. Is there anything you could share down the pipeline about the future of Alien?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, we have things, some cool stuff coming up, of course. The next one after this is a new cinematic scenario that will do things a little bit differently. We have published three already. There is one in the starter set, and then there is Destroyer of Worlds and Heart of Darkness, which those three kind of they're not you won't be playing the same characters, but they kind of still connect into a single larger narrative that concluded in Heart of Darkness. So now actually the new one we're working on kind of does some, it kind of, it's not a new start specifically, but it's a different story that does things a little bit differently. So it'll be cool. I mean, we're working on it now and I can't share that much
Hmm.
yet, but yeah, sometime in the next few months for sure, we'll have information about that. And that's kind of the next thing at the moment. Then we'll see. There's more ideas and stuff, but the next one is a new cinematic scenario coming up.
Hmm. Excellent. Well, uh, thank you, Thomas, for taking the time to talk to us about Alien
Sure.
Building Better Worlds. An excellent, well designed, beautiful book. Um,
Thank you.
and I'll put a link in the description below for anyone who's interested about either pre ordering or purchasing the PDF while they can. Yes, viewers, thank you for watching. Be safe out there. We'll see you next time.